Thank you very much. I'll make the talk quicker to try to catch up time. All the information is in the booklet. Nothing much happens in Australia apart from drought and flood, and we're probably looking at drought at the moment. So I'll move through very quickly. I'm going to touch on overview of Australia, look at the agriculture, the grain situation, what has happened with wheat deregulation, quick look at oilseeds and the feed and livestock market. We of course are located south of here. Northern part of Australia is closer to the region here than it is to Sydney and Melbourne down in the southern part of the country. So we're really very much part of Southeast Asia. We've got a very large land area covering very wide climatic zones and a very low population number and density. Despite our large land area, we all like to live in big cities near the beach. So just to locate us in the region, population-wise, we're way down at only 21 million, with a large land area not far behind China, and a very low population density. From an agriculture point of view, very dry continent with poor soils and very little land for productive agriculture. So most of the agriculture is in the coastal fringes, where you can see more of the red and green colours, the east coast of from Victoria up to Queensland and the southwest part of West Australia. From the economy point of view, on the figures that I found using purchasing power parity, we're about an $800 billion US economy, ranked 19th in the world, and 26th in the per capita. So that would put the Australian economy in size somewhere between Indonesia and Thailand, and you can see the ranking of the countries in the region there. The Australian economy has come through the last year's crisis very, very well, thanks to a very large government stimulus package. We've had very low interest rates by Australian standards, but they're still at 3% official rate, and it looks as if our interest rates are going to be going up perhaps by the end of the year, which will be the first of the developed economies to raise rates after the crisis. We've had a wild ride in the US dollar, Australian dollar exchange rate in the last year. That's showing the amount of US dollar to buy one Australian dollar. So we've really come right back up to where we were a year ago. Historically, Australia, the economy was based on agriculture, but we're fortunate that we have a lot of minerals and energy, and we've had huge increase in the mining and energy sector. I think I'll go to the graph here. This shows the last 5 years, and down the bottom you can look at the agricultural sector, which is very flat, and huge increases in the export of minerals and energy, which is a lot of it is iron ore to China and coal to China. I've converted the figures here to US dollars. In my presentation there in Australian dollars, I've converted it 85 cents, which was the rate yesterday. So our agriculture, we've got, from a plants and animal point of view, favourable disease status, and we have strict quarantine requirements to protect that. Unlike the region here, poultry and pig are relatively minor industries compared to beef, wheat, the dairy industry, wool and barley. And for the big agricultural industries, export is a very important part. We have a very variable climate, driven mainly by the El Nino event, when the El Nino gives high rainfall in South America, it means drought in Australia and to the north of us, as was discussed yesterday. The major agricultural products are shown here with ranking on value, showing how big beef the cattle market is, down through wheat and so on. And from an export point of view, again, you can see the big industries are the are major exporters as well. Look at our cereal grains. We're a grain exporter. We're not a customer for the US grain industry generally. Occasionally we've had minor importation during drought periods, but by and large we're a grain exporter. Our grain is dominated by wheat, followed by barley, and our production is very dependent on winter rainfall for the major cereals, and summer rainfall for sorghum, and irrigation for rice, which has really disappeared as an industry. You can see here how variable our production is year to year depending on climatic conditions, perhaps better illustrated by the chart here. The top line is wheat, and you can see how wheat is the dominant grain, and how we went from a record crop in 2005-06 from 25 million tonnes the following year down to about a little over 10 million tonnes. Huge variation. According to Emily, the current Australian wheat crop really doesn't matter in the world situation anyway. We had a very promising start to the current wheat crop, which is now being, I think, burnt, I think was the word used. Next week there'll be official figures out, and I would think the winter crops, wheat and barley, etc., will be the estimates will be sharply down. At the last two meetings of this group in Perth and Cambodia, there was some discussion about the deregulation of the Australian bulk wheat export market. The Australian wheat market was regulated and in monopoly hands from 1939 until beginning of deregulation in 1984, but it's taken until last year for the major component of the crop, the bulk wheat export market, to be deregulated. These are some figures that I got from a grain conference in Melbourne in July, showing the top importers of Australian wheat, and clearly this region is a very important part of that top 15, Indonesia in particular. Despite predictions of great gloom, the first year went through reasonably well. There were some major shipping problems in West Australia, particularly, which caused major problems for a few of the buyers. It was partly due to deregulation and partly due to a very large crop in West Australia, and hopefully the logistics problems that occurred can be improved in the future. Of the 23 accredited exporters, there are five main players in the market. None of them dominated. They were all limited by the amount of funding they could get to pay for the crop that they needed to accumulate for export. And the container trade, which had grown to about 2 million metric tonnes a year after it was deregulated earlier, seems to have been maintained, and a lot of the containers are coming into this area. I'll